Got you niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me. And Justin Brown for your movie needs. Medium popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So if you get pissed, it's all your fault.
What is up, little biscuits and sun-dried tomatoes? It's your boy Brandon Collins, and I'm here with a mini review of A Quiet Place Day 1, which I had the pleasure of seeing a few days ago. It's been written and directed by Michael Sarnowski, who did the movie Pig, which was critically acclaimed, starring Nicolas Cage. Michael had written and directed that, and this is the follow-up. The log line is, the film follows a woman named Sam during the early stages of an invasion in New York City by alien creatures with ultrasonic hearing. Lupita Nyong'o plays the role of Sam. Joseph Quinn from Stranger Things, his breakout role there, stars as Eric. Then we have Alex Wolff from Hereditary as a character named Ruben, and Daimon Hansu, who reprises his role as Henry, also appears in the movie. Which, if you've seen the trailers, you know that it takes place in Manhattan during day one of the invasion, which we got a hint at in A Quiet Place Part 2 with the Cillian Murphy, John Krasinski opening when they were playing baseball, and then the aliens start invading and the fallout from that. So for me, this movie was interesting because I wanted to see, I was interested in seeing a different perspective on what happens in this world when these aliens invade, and placing it in New York City, which is one of the loudest places on the planet, I imagine. Great, pitch, great idea. I will say I was very disappointed to find most of the action sequences, basically 75% of them, are in various trailers. There is nothing incredibly surprising when I saw A Quiet Place Day 1. Not in the way that the first movie completely blew me away with its creativity, its intensity, and the audience response. That was a great community experience because from minute one, everyone just shut the hell up and their eyes were glued to the screen. No one looked at their phones. People barely even breathed. That's how intense that situation was. A Quiet Place 2, we were just coming out of the pandemic. People were excited to be in movie theaters again. And it was a good continuation of the first one. It just didn't have the surprise of the first one, but it's still a solid follow-up to it. And so being able to go in a different part of New York, because the first two take place in upstate New York, was an interesting prospect. And having Lupita Nyong'o, Oscar winner, as your lead, incredibly inspired. I think she's a terrific actress that needs to get more live-action lead roles because they keep putting her behind these random characters and animate shit, or behind CGI characters, right? And so I was incredibly excited about this. However, like I said, the trailers kind of gave away so much, and there are quiet parts where there's moments of really strong dialogue between Sam and Eric, but it's not enough for me to feel like this was a justified new entry in this series. And I think that might have been a marketing thing because, like I said, I just was really disappointed that I wasn't surprised in any way in what transpired. And then the big sequence in the third act is a very by-the-numbers chase sequence. There's nothing special about it. And I know a lot of people were oogling and ogling about the cat that's featured heavily throughout the trailer. The cat is featured heavily throughout the movie as well. But I got a lot of messages from people saying, tell me what happens to the cat. No, don't tell me. But does the cat die? Because if it does, I can't handle it. I can't deal. And I'm like, okay, this is just making me have more conflicted feelings about the movie than I already do. I'm not going to tell you what happens with the cat, but if you're worried about animal cruelty, you're going to be fine. But it was just, the cat was fine. Everything felt a little contrived. And that's weird for me with the series because the series to me is so original. I mean, it has a lot of influences from different movies and things like that, but it just really surprised me, and I was really engaged. And Lupita, she's not really given, she's given a character with an emotional arc, but it doesn't fully not that it doesn't resonate, but it just didn't click the way that I think that Michael Sarnowski was hoping it would for audiences. It just didn't quite gel with me. And, it was a bit frustrating because in a way you're kind of watching this person kind of like, sentence themselves to death in a lot of respects. But then they do things where it's like, well, do they want to live? And if so, then let's talk about this. But we don't really do that. It's a tight hour and a half. I think it was like 93 minutes. So you're in and out before you even know it. Now, that's not to say that this isn't an entertaining movie. It is to an extent. I mean, it is intense, downbeat, and a bit fatalist, but there are moments, glimmers of hope. There are glimmers of intriguing sci-fi action, and I just think I expected a different movie based on the advertising saying, learn how it all started. And, it just seemed like they promised to kind of tell us a little bit more about the aliens. And we learned nothing new about this world. We knew nothing new about why this invasion started, unless I missed something like an Easter egg or a quick moment, piece of dialogue. Like, it didn't have any additional context and add any layers to this world that we already seen, because if the whole idea was to be like, hey, let's show you what it was like during day one, you kind of gave us that with A Quiet Place Part 2. Granted, it was on a much, much smaller scale, right? But it was still a small town. You're seeing them deal with this alien invasion and crashing through buildings and the aliens attacking people that are scared. So you kind of already showed us that. So if you're going to do it on a bigger scale in New York City, then that's fine. But then you got to cut a lot of that stuff out from the trailer and give us kind of a Cloverfield type of thing, because I think they gave away way too much in the trailer, which, again, like I said, it took away all the surprise of like having, this movie set in a place like New York City. And I think also there just could have been more. I think that there should have been more information about how people were able to survive the way that they did to an extent, how the boats worked for getting people off of Manhattan. The Joseph Quinn role as Eric, we meet him, he bursts through the water after outside of a flooded subway station, which I was like, he would have drowned. He definitely would have drowned, or at least be definitely ill from the contaminated water that was flushed out of that subway system. I mean, let's be honest. If you get called down to subways in the water, you are not going to do well. Even if you survive from being drowned, it's not going to go well for you. So, if I'm being honest, Joseph Quinn, loved him in Stranger Things. I think he's got phenomenal representation because they capitalize on that. He's going to be in Gladiator 2, Fantastic Four. He's doing the damn thing. But honestly, the role of Eric could have been played by anyone. It really could have. Lupita brought a little bit of the different kind of intensity to the role of Sam, so I actually do like her casting a lot. It's just that, the Eric one, I was like, oh, this could have been played by anybody. Even Alex Wolff could have been bumped up to the second lead. But I get Joseph Quinn, is the hot up-and-coming dude right now. But, yeah, like I said, it could have been practically anybody. Maybe even Donald Glover, after seeing what he did in Mr. and Mrs. Smith, he might have been an interesting, inspired choice for Eric, but that might have been too many black stars for such a, important IP to the studio. But, again, I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from going to see it. I just had different expectations, I think, than what I ended up seeing on screen. And there are some solid moments and stuff, but again, I think, and this is wild because I wasn't actively even looking to watch the trailers. They just kept popping up in movies I was going to see or commercials. And even when I sometimes skip some of the commercials on the apps and stuff, I still saw enough where it's like, okay, when it popped up in the movie, I'm like, I'm not surprised. This actually doesn't add anything like watching on a big screen versus when I watch it at home, which I guess is one last thing about seeing in the theaters, that it did feel, this is made by Paramount, it did feel like it could potentially have been a Paramount Plus movie versus theatrical. That was the one thing that surprised me, is that as big as much of a mass scale to try to seem, because it takes place in New York City, it actually felt quite small. And that's not a terrible thing. It's just seeing it in the theater, and I saw it in an IMAX theater, it didn't feel big enough. It didn't feel like it really filled the screen, which is really surprising to say. And some of the CGI was a bit wonky. I can't lie. It was a bit wonky. I know the budget wasn't huge. I believe it had a $67 million budget, which is a nice budget. I think it will definitely make its money back. But, yeah, it's just, I don't know. You folks know that on this podcast we rate movies as popcorn, small, medium, large, XO for the exceptional. If a movie doesn't deserve to go into a fresh bag of popcorn, it goes into stale popcorn, we pile piles and piles of stale popcorn on it. So I'm giving this, I'm really torn between a small and a medium. Really torn. I'm going to give it a medium just because it doesn't do anything to hurt the Quiet Place franchise, but doesn't do anything to add to it either. And for that, I think it's fine. It's absolutely fine. Lupita Nyong'o is inspired in her role as Sam, and it does have some strong character moments when it talks about life and reflecting, but still, even then, the characters are still kind of thinly written at times, and it's a very dark movie. It's not like the typical summer exciting blockbuster you would typically see, but I kind of wish they had leaned more into that dark, morbid, dreadful feeling, and I think it's trying to be a little bit more inspiring than the first Quiet Place, because the first Quiet Place did end on a pretty sad note, right? Like, it's like this family's gonna keep pushing on, but they did just lose a big member of their family, right? And so medium popcorn, but it had the potential to be a larger XL. It definitely did. And I wish that we got a little bit more meat on the bones, so to speak. But that's my review on A Quiet Place, day one. Little mini review for you folks. As always, you can follow me at Frodo_Blackens on Instagram. You can follow the show at Medium P Podcast on all social media platforms, including TikTok. And, if you're feeling a little generous, you can support us at patreon.com/mediumpopcorn. We have $2, $5, $10, and $15 tiers. Either one helps the show, so please consider joining the Patreon because it helps keep the lights on, helps us get to these screenings, and share the word with you so you know whether or not it's worth spending your $20+ on a ticket to go see these things. So thank you, as always, for your support. If money's a little tight, just leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast application, preferably Apple Podcasts if you have it, and we will read it on the show. All right, folks. I'll talk to y'all next week during our normal programming. Peace.
Medium popcorn. We are two niggas spoiling movies. Yeah. Brandon Collins, that's me, and Justin Brown for your movie needs. Medium popcorn. Woo! You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it. Spoil it in your face. That's your warning. So